What's going on, everyone? Dare here, and welcome back to another day of Marvel Snap. And it is that time of the month where I'm going to be going through and talking about the state of my collection and resources, and also what spotlight caches I personally going to be chasing after next month. As always, this is just my personal preference, and most of this kind of depends on what your current collection level is and what kind of decks you like playing. But that kind of sums it up. Let's hop in there and let's see what the state of my current collection looks like. So I'm not going to lie, I was expecting to be sitting on more keys at this point in time, but I'm a dummy and decided to chase after High Evo. And that took me 3 keys. I did end up getting Bruce Banner, High Evo, and Kang. Woo! But I am sitting on 10 keys going into January, which I think should hopefully be enough to get the cards that I want to get. I'm also sitting on 11,000 tokens. I did end up buying Doctor Doom 2099 with tokens this month, just because I mean a lot of the spotlight caches this month were not very good for the additional cards, and I've been pretty vocal about that. But overall, I'm sitting on 10 keys currently. I just picked up my 10th, so my 11th key is a ways off still, but I think I should have enough keys to get everything that I want in January. I'm just hoping that I don't deplete my entire, I don't know, little honeypot of keys that I've got going here before February gets here. But either way, we've got plenty. Let's hop in there and let's look at the spotlight caches that are coming next month. All right, and the first week, the week of December 31st through January 7th, we've got Rocket and Groot being joined by Selene and Blob. Rocket and Groot is a very interesting card to me because I do feel like it's going to be fairly strong. It is a 3/3. You can move this once. After your opponent plays a card here, steal 1 power from it, which we've seen in the past. Cards that steal power from your opponent's cards are usually really strong. Cassandra Nova is still played today, even outside of when Erishim's not meta relevant. Silver Sable is another great example of she's probably one of the best one cost cards, and was nerfed due to how much, power she was bringing to the board. I think cards that steal power from your opponent always end up being really good. And essentially it's because that 1 power essentially is worth 2. Because even though you're gaining that 1, the power on the board is equal to 2 because your opponent's losing 1 and you're gaining 1. And so, I mean, even if you play Rocket and Groot on 1 lane, they play 3 cards in that lane, he's going up to a 3/6, but he's actually a 3/9 because he's taken the power from your opponent and added it to you. So it's that 6 power shift that's really, really strong, and it has the ability to move. There's not, I mean, especially for 3 power, I'm trying to think of how many cards out there are allowed to move that are low cost like that. I mean, Jeff is the one that comes to mind. But I mean, that's the same as like Nocturne or Vision. Usually more expensive cards have the ability to move, not necessarily cheaper ones. So I think he is a very interesting card. I think this card is gonna require a great amount of skill to play. And by that, I mean you're gonna have to be able to predict, or at least have the ability to control where your opponent's playing, to really get the full utilization out of him. I mean, if you're playing a Zoo deck, yeah, all day long. But if you're not playing a Zoo deck, and you have to be strategic about anticipating where your opponent's going to be at, I think that it's going to be a little harder, especially for like a beginning player who's still trying to understand what the different decks are, and that kind of essentially tribal knowledge of like, oh, this is a Silver Surfer deck or this is a Zoo deck, and recognizing that. And I think Rocket and Groot's going to be kind of one of those cards that you're going to need a pretty good understanding of what you're playing against to get the most out of him. But I think overall he's going to be a very interesting card. I'm personally not going to pull on him, mainly because I don't know what kind of deck I'd even want to put him in. I mean, he fits in Affliction. He could honestly, and I always say this on 3 costs, and I think everyone else always says it in 3 costs, could be an interesting play on Silver Surfer, especially if you don't feel like running Cassandra Nova. Could just slot in there and could just be a good, I guess, detrimental card to just have out there while you're playing other things. Very interesting card on that. And so for that reason, I'm like, maybe, but overall, I am going to be passing on this week. Blob is one of the few Series 5 cards in December still, but I mean, he's playing Erishim and Thanos. And I mean, at this point, Erishim and Thanos are the same deck. So I don't really think that Blob is a necessary Series 5 card for anyone, unless you're playing a lot of Erishim and or Thanos. Selene is not very good unless you really like Clog and Junk. And even then, I don't even think she's included into the meta, at least clog decks. She's probably still played in junk with Annihilus, but I mean, that doesn't really see a whole lot of play right now anyway. So overall, this week is a definite pass from me. Plus, I already have Blob, so that doesn't help. Definite pass for me, and I'm going to be saving my resources for the next week. And let's move on to that. All right, we've got week 2, January 7th through January 14th. This is probably my most hyped week of the month. Actually, this has been the week that I've been looking forward to for a long time since I actually saw that it was announced. And we've got a Victoria Hand being joined by Grandmaster and Kate Bishop. Victoria Hand is a 2/3 ongoing. Your cards that were created in your hand have +2 power. I cannot wait to get the shield archetype or the card generator archetype. Some much needed love. Oh, I'm so excited. I think this is gonna be so much fun. Some collector action, you know, some Nick Fury. Oh god, there's gonna be so many, there's just so many cards that kind of fit into this that I'm really excited to kind of throw this deck together. Maybe some Devil Dinosaur. Is our boy gonna finally become meta relevant again? He's been popping around, so this may actually see him coming back in full force, and I'm really excited to do it. Victoria Hand is definitely my card I'm most excited about in the past couple of months. So cannot wait. She is an absolute, I'm going hard in on this week specifically for her. But if you're not as excited for Victoria Hand as I am, Grandmaster is a great Series 4 card. He's actually seen a lot of relevance here in the past couple of months. I feel like he saw a lot of resurgence in the past at least 2 months, being put into like discard, and I think that he's in like the Mill Darkhawk deck as well. He just has seen a lot of play recently. And then finally, if you missed out on her in her season pass, Kate Bishop is without a doubt one of the top 3 2-cost cards. She is so good. She alone is probably worth chasing after this week, just because you can slot her into pretty much any deck. I find myself playing Kate Bishop all the time. If I just need a 2-cost on curve, Kate Bishop is the way that I want to go. So really, really great cards this week. I think this is probably my top week for the month, if not my top week for the past 2. So really excited. I don't necessarily need to gush over any of these cards anymore. I'm going all in, probably blowing all of my keys on this week. All right, we got week 3, January 14th through January 21st. We've got Moonstone being joined by Black Swan and Nocturne. Moonstone is a 4/6 ongoing, has the ongoing effects of your 1, 2, and 3 cost cards here. If you're wondering why I put a large emphasis on here, it's because this dumb idiot cannot read, and when I was going through these cards in the data mine, I missed that and assumed that she had the ongoing effects of all 1, 2, and 3 cost cards on your side of the board. And I got told in the comments very many times how wrong I was. Duly. I did definitely need to be corrected, because at that time, I was really worried how strong she was going to be, because if she was getting the 1, 2, and 3 cost ongoing cards on your entire side of the board, that would be absolutely busted, and I was honestly concerned about it. But in reality, she's still going to be really strong. I think that Moonstone is going to be a really fun card to play. I'm really looking forward to her. I mean, specifically Zoo, just because I am a Zoo enjoyer, and I'm just thinking about Ant-Man and Dazzler and Mystique. I don't have Mystique in my Zoo deck, but I mean, stuff like, maybe I will now, because maybe I could throw Iron Man on one lane, Mystique him, have Moonstone in that, and then Moonstone here is a nice little, I mean, double Iron Man in a lane. Sounds really, really strong, especially if you have Ant-Man and Dazzler there as well. So could be really, really, really interesting, the things that we can kind of do with this card. So I'm really kind of excited to see what we're going to be doing with Moonstone. She is being joined by Black Swan and Nocturne. I'm actually kind of on the fence, because Black Swan sounds like a very intriguing card to me, but I don't honestly have a lot of bounce cards. And maybe this is where I start. Maybe I pick up Black Swan and I hope that, you know, I can get Hit Monkey and a bunch of the other bounce cards, and I can start inching my way towards that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This week and the next week are 2 that I'm kind of tossing between which one I'm using my keys on, because I also need Nocturne. Nocturne is a card that I do not have in my deck. She's, I think, really strong still. I don't think she gets a whole lot of usage since she got nerfed. I think she went from a 3.5 to a 3.4, and at that point, everyone's like, oh, not worth using anymore. But I do think that she's still a really strong card. So I'm kind of on the fence between whether I want to use my keys on this week or I want to use my keys on next week, which we'll talk about next. Which either way, I'll either probably be using my tokens on the new Spotlight card on whichever one that I don't get. So either way, I'm going to try and get my hands on Moonstone, even if I don't use my Spotlight keys on this week. So with that in mind, let's go take a look at what next week holds. All right, coming in on week 4, we got January 21st through January 28th. We've got Bullseye being joined by Kyra and Marvel Boy. Bullseye is a 3/3. Activate, discard all cards that cost 1 or less from your hand. Afflict that many different enemy cards with -2. God, he's gonna be fun with Swarm. I didn't quite make that connection. Well, I did, because I literally was like, oh man, if Swarm was just 1 cheaper, then he had worked so good with Bullseye, just completely forgetting how Swarm works. So I think I'm really excited for this, because I mean, the Swarm Collector deck could be really, really interesting with Bullseye, and I'm kind of excited to see what that does. But I mean, yeah, we're gonna see, because I mean, especially, yeah, if you've got a handful of swarms and like an Apocalypse, could be very, very interesting. Maybe you don't even run Apocalypse, maybe you don't do the Dracula line of trying to get a big swarm, and maybe you do something like Swarm and Scorn, and then, you know, you've got a hand, you know, 6 swarms and 1 Scorn in hand, and all of a sudden you're reducing your opponent's side of the board by -14. So very, very intriguing card. I think he's gonna suck to play against, is what I think. I think you're gonna see Bullseye on the board and you're like, oh, this is not gonna be fun for anyone involved except for the person playing him. So I am very intrigued by Bullseye. Joining Bullseye for this week is Kyra and Marvel Boy, which, just like I talked last week in the last Spotlight Cache, is that I do really enjoy Zoo. Kyra is a card that's been on my 1 list forever. I really need her. I already have Marvel Boy, and that's fine. I mean, Marvel Boy is one of my favorite cards as well. If I did get a nice new variant for him on this week, I'm actually fine with that, mainly because I do play Zoo quite a bit. So this week, like I said, is one of the ones where I'm just kind of like, I can't decide if I want to spend my keys on this week or the previous week. It's probably going to be this one. It's just kind of one of those situations where I really like Moonstone over Bullseye, but I don't have Black Swan or Nocturne, but I would rather have Kyra than both of those, you know? So it's kind of weird, and honestly, it's going to really depend on how many keys I have at that moment. So I think one of the things that I possibly could do is pick up Moonstone with tokens and then go in on this week with my keys. But let's be realistic here. All of this changes in the moment anyway. I mean, I got suckered into pulling up Bruce Banner, which I was very much leaning not doing that, but I definitely did one high Evo. So all of it, you know, is subject to change. But at this moment in time, these 2 weeks are a little hard for me to try and, you know, decide between which one I actually want to use my keys on or not. But I'm going into that with the expectation that I'm going to be using 4 on week 2. So it's good to have options. It's really, really good to have options. I guess the other side of that is that I probably need to kind of just take a look at this and take an educated guess on which cards are probably going to get the series drop. I would lean more towards Black Swan and Nocturne dropping before Kyra or Marvel Boy would be. So that's probably also something that I need to take into account as well. But either way, really excited for this week. Bullseye, I think it's going to be so much fun. I think he's going to open up a new kind of play line with Discard, I'm hoping. Not that Discard really even needs it. Discard is in such a good place right now. And then Kyra is just a card that I really, really want for my current decks. So the great week, definitely going to be, I'm going to be pulling on it regardless. So moving on to the next one. All right, the final week, we got week 5, January 28th through February 4th. We've got Ares, Kang, and Misery. Ares is a 4/6 on reveal. Compare the power of the top 3 cards of both decks. If your total power is higher, +6. Okay. We've got, I spoke about this during the data mine. I mean, essentially Ares is going in the Surtur deck. If you're running Surtur, you're going to want Ares. He just kind of seems like that card. I feel like that he's replacing a few of the cards that got bumped down to 9 power recently, which is fine. I think that kind of needed one more. Plus, it's another option over like Crossbones or Coal Obsidian or one of the ones that have a lot of restrictions. So I think he is going to be a really, really good card to have in that deck. Outside of that, is he like, oh, I need to have this? No, I don't. He's just a big dumb card with, you know, a restriction on him. So I think overall he's going to go great in that deck. I don't really see a whole lot of other decks seeing play from him unless, I don't know, you're doing some sort of on reveal card with, you know, some sort of gore deck. Could be interesting. But I think overall that's just kind of where he's going to fit in. Oh, and also this week is kind of meh anyway. So he's being joined by Kang and Misery. I personally just got Kang in my Spotlight Cache, like I mentioned earlier in the video, so you can tell I'm just utterly excited about that. But I'm hoping he gets a rework. I'm really hoping if they're putting him in a Spotlight Cache that they've got something in mind for him. But we'll see. We'll see what's going on with Kang. And then Misery she was just okay. She has decks here and there where she kind of shines, but even then, not really. So she's just an okay card, and I think this week really is just kind of full of just which is unfortunate. But they're none of them are bad cards to have. I mean, Kang might be. But Misery has its uses, and Ares, you can essentially slot Ares into anything. I mean, he's a 4-cost big boy card. So it's not like you should be disappointed if you get Ares, but I'm not feeling like, woo, you know? But either way, that's week 5. Let's move on to the bundles you should keep an eye out for this month. To start off with, there is one called Cosmic Charmer coming on January 7th. It is for a Mantis variant. You get 800 credits and 800 gold for $10. It's got a currency value of 180%, which is probably one of the better ones all month. I would only suggest this if you're fine with spending $10 or you have a Galaxy Store coupon burning a hole in your pocket, especially if you picked up the December Galaxy Store coupon and use that on the season pass, and then you still have another one for the beginning of January. You could essentially get this bundle for $1, which is honestly really, really good. Really decent for that old currency value. The next one we're going to take a look at is Take a Bow. It is a Mirage bundle for 2,800 credits for 2,000 gold. And I'm bringing this up because specifically, do not buy this bundle. Unless you are super flush in gold, do not buy this bundle. And by super flush, I mean you are like close to 10,000. I would not get this bundle because there are 2 more, one coming later in January and another in February. You're going to want to have your gold for instead. The next one coming in January is in fact called Protocol Termination. It is for a Nimrod variant, and you get 3,000 collector's tokens. So Nimrod is a Series 4 card, and you get 3,000 collector's tokens for 4,000 gold. I would do this all day long. I don't have Nimrod, so it's definitely where I'm spending my gold. And on top of it, there is and asterisk, just in case that there's always a possibility it's going to get changed, because at this point, I think it's too good to possibly not get changed. But there is an Anti-Venom bundle coming in February for 4,500 gold, 3,000 collector's tokens, and 3,000 credits. I'm going to be absolutely shocked if this thing stays untouched. But if it does not, you're going to want to have 4,500 gold in pocket, because Anti-Venom is a really good card that's seeing a lot of usage. It's Series 5, and you're getting 3,000 tokens for 4,500 gold. In the likelihood that they do not touch this, you're going to want to have the gold for this bundle. That drops on February 20th. So I would keep that in mind. And then overall, there are a few, I guess, real life currencies, you know, your dollars, your Canadian dollars, your euros out there for some Series 5 cards this month if you're open to that. Hope Summers is coming on January 14th. You also have Gilgamesh, which is a fantastic card if you like stuff like Zoo, on January 21st. And then there is also an Ajax one that is going to be dropping on January 28th. So those are all Series 5 cards. If you're open to spending that kind of money on the game, they're probably the bundles to keep an eye out for, just because getting a Series 5 card, I feel, is kind of, you know, probably better than picking up some credits. But overall, I think that is the bundles for the month. All right, let's see how I'm going to be spending the next month of my life. Week 1, we got Rocket and Groot being joined by Celine and Blob. This week is definitely a hard pass for me. I'm actually anticipating Rocket and Groot being a pretty decent card. I do think he's going to be really good. I think he's probably going to see more play in the, I guess, higher echelon, the more competitive player, like the higher Infinity Ladder. But overall, I think he's going to be a decent card, but I'm definitely not chasing this week. We got week 2 with Victoria Hand, Grandmaster, and Kate Bishop. Even though I already own Kate Bishop, going all in. So hopefully, fingers crossed, week 2, I'm getting Victoria Hand first, Grandmaster second, bouncing out with 2 keys still in hand. But I have a feeling I'm going deep with 4. Week 3, we've got Moonstone, Black Swan, and Nocturne. This is going to be extremely dependent on how many keys I use in the previous week. More than likely, I'll probably be pulling Moonstone with tokens. But if I do go, you know, 2 in and done on week 2, I'll probably use keys on this week. On week 4, we've got Bullseye, Kyra, and Marvel Boy. Kind of the same thing with the previous week. It's highly dependent on how many keys I end up using to when I get to this point. More than likely, I'm going in on this week specifically because I want Kyra. I think she's a card that I kind of need in my Zoo deck, in my High Evo deck, and just a lot of different decks. Kyra is kind of needed. I am excited for Bullseye. So I definitely, it's going to be dependent on what happens in week 3, or week 2 and 3. And then finally, we got week 5, January 28th through February 4th. We've got Ares, King, Misery, Avoiding Like the Plague. Not using any resources on that week, and honestly, I try not to tell people too much how to use theirs. I would not roll on this week if I were you, unless there is signs that Kang is getting a rework. If Kang is getting a rework, then potentially it's an interesting week. Even then, I don't know. Kang would have to have a really strong rework. Ares is not a bad card, but he's not anything that's going to shake anything up. In my opinion, I could be wrong. Maybe he comes out and he's like the best card that's ever happened. But overall, that's how the kind of month of January is looking. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I enjoy actually putting this video together every month. So I hope you guys actually, you know, enjoy watching it. I hope you guys all have a great start of your year. I hope you guys all have a great 2025. And yeah, thanks so much for everything. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button for more of my content. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Check you later.